'cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave.
For the Daily Caller stops by on a packed edition of Vince. It is so good to have you with us. Hello to the chat. Great to be here with you on Rumble today. As always, we've got a lot to get to. First, this program is free thanks to our great sponsors. They're amazing, and among them, ExpressVPN. You know, unfortunately, in this country right now, privacy, as you know, is a luxury. And without privacy, there's no freedom. But who has the luxury of privacy? Privacy is given to the government, tucked into millions of classified documents. It's no secret that the NSA is surveilling us. They're buying your information from data brokers, surveilling every move that you make online. But what if I told you there is a way to stop that and get your privacy and freedom back? It's with a product called ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN. It's an app that sends 100% of my online activity through secure, encrypted servers. That means that no data broker, government agency, or big tech company can track your online activity. Just within the last 12 months, ExpressVPN received over 400,000 data requests from tech companies and government agencies. And within the last year, did you know how many of their customers' information was actually shared? Well, let me say, it was zero. It was zero. That's not hard to remember. ExpressVPN is easy to use. It takes just one click and it works on all of your devices. Right now, you can get an extra 4 months for free when you use my special link. Go to expressvpn.com/Vince. Get 4 extra months of ExpressVPN. That's expressvpn.com/Vince. Well, good morning to those of you watching live on Rumble. Great to have you with us from all across this glorious country, from sea to shining sea. We really do have so much news to share with you. This is the blessing of the Trump administration. You have so much news that it's hard to keep track of all of it. It's drinking from a fire hose every single day. But lucky for you, I'm capable of that. I can handle it. And I've got a really fascinating thing for you. It came out last night on the Fox News channel. It was this mega interview that Bret Baier did with the whole Doge squad, bringing in Elon Musk and then all of the guys who are working for the Department of Government Efficiency in the Trump administration. And to give you a sense of who these people are, these guys are energy executives, they're rocket scientists, they're computer engineers, they're Wall Street experts. All of these fellows are the real deal. They're people who are very successful in the private sector. And each of them in succession agreed to come into the United States government to help make it more efficient, because they, like you, see the writing on the wall. When we are approaching $37 trillion in debt, when the government basically doesn't do anything productive and instead wastes all of our money, that means this is all going to end in catastrophe unless somebody yanks back the reins and gets control of all of this. And luckily, these guys are all doing it. And the media lies that have been told about what they're up to, well, once you see some of the clips I'm about to share with you, they should be so easy to rebut. If you've got people in your life who are like, they're causing chaos, they're going after Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, it's garbage. It's utter garbage. In fact, this group of guys are working right now to protect those very things. So, of course, the left has to lie about it so they can stop their slush funds from being taken away from them. Let's take a look at some of this. Elon Musk starts this right away by describing a very useless government survey. When I say useless, it was a survey that was conducted by the Department of the Interior that didn't go anywhere. The data from the survey didn't go literally anywhere. The survey ran $1 billion to conduct. And Elon says, we could have done this for $10,000. Take a look.
I talk to all the guys here about the specifics, but for you, what's the most astonishing thing you've found out in this process?
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government. It is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually.
1 billion.
For example, like the simple survey that was literally 10-question survey that you could do with SurveyMonkey, cost you about $10,000. The government was being charged almost $1 billion for that.
For just the survey?
$1 billion for a simple online survey. Do you like the national park? And then there appeared to be no feedback loop for what would be done with that survey. So the survey would just go into nothing. It was like insane.
It was like insane, says Elon. So $1 billion survey. This is government work if I've ever heard of it. $1 billion survey distributed. People apparently took time to fill out the $1 billion survey. And then the data goes literally nowhere. Zero use for the survey. So it's another left-wing make-work program where they just take a bunch of money, steal it from you, and then send it out the door to obviously people that they're associated with, their cronies. $1 billion for a useless survey. And they say this is the kind of stuff that they're finding every single day. In fact, Elon intends to stay in the government and be a part of all of this and you hear Brett Baer talk about this in the interview, for about 130 days. Now, last I checked, what are we at, day 67? So we're just over 50% of the way to 130 days. Elon is going to be attached to this project for that first 130. And his goal is to be on track to save you and me $1 trillion in government spending. No more. He wants to cut down government spending by at least $1 trillion using Doge. And the success they've had so far is every single day that they've been on the job, Elon describes, they've saved $4 billion on average. On average, each day, they've cut $4 billion of waste and fraud. Take a listen to Elon talk about this.
Some point at 100 days? Or?
Not really a report. We are cutting the waste and fraud in real time. So every day that passes, our goal is to reduce the waste and fraud by $4 billion a day, every day, 7 days a week. And so far, we are succeeding.
$4 billion a day, not just working days, not just the weekdays, every single day of the week, 7 days a week, $4 billion bucks. That's what they've done so far. So that's, again, I don't know about you. I'm pretty sure that's what we voted for. That's a huge deal. Also, this is the big one. There's a bunch of great clips here, but this one is cataclysmic. So the left likes to talk about how, Doge is at the Social Security Administration. They're going to hurt grandma. Listen to these guys explain what's going on at Social Security. The big takeaway here is that of all of the phone calls that the Social Security Administration receives, 40% of the calls, 40% of all of the phone calls that they receive are scammers trying to steal money from Social Security recipients by changing the direct deposit number that's on file for real Social Security recipients. Listen to this. So much fraud coming into Social Security.
At Social Security, one of the first things we learned is that they get phone calls every day of people trying to change direct deposit information. So when you want to change your bank account, you can call Social Security. We learned 40% of the phone calls that they get are from fraudsters. 40%? That's right. Almost half.
Yes, and they steal people's Social Security is what happens. Is they call in, they say, they claim to be a retiree, then they convince the Social Security person on the phone to change where the money's flowing.
Okay. So obviously getting control of that is important, but think about what's going on here. So if Doge has they've identified 40% of the calls are fraudsters. We need criminal referrals, don't we? If you can tell that people are calling in to steal Social Security money from Americans who worked their whole lives, gave to Social Security taxes, are waiting to receive that money back in retirement, and you've got these demons stealing from them, behind bars, send these guys to El Salvador. Send those people to El Salvador. Put them on planes. Put them in shackles. Shave their heads as they steal from America's seniors. 40% of the calls. If you are a lefty who is within the sound of my voice, who have been credulously following the media's coverage of this and going, oh my gosh, they're going after Social Security. Today is the day. Today is the day. Break yourself of the spell. As these guys talk about what they're trying to do, which is to protect access to those Social Security payments, to make sure that money actually gets to grandma instead of be stolen by some demon who gets on the phone. and takes it. There's a lot of criminal referrals that need to be in place here. I see some people pointing out in the chat, this is absolutely jail, as many as possible. 100% agree, Vince, as moves to one. I saw somebody point out that it's time for Dan Bongino to get involved in this. Trust me, this is the kind of thing Dan will be all over. So send this stuff to Elon. Send it to Dan. Send it to Dan. Are they stealing Social Security money from people? Perfect. Send that to Dan Bongino and let him handle it. Here we go. More. What's going on at the IRS? Look at these guys. Everyone in the chat is with me here. Thank you, guys. What's going on at the IRS? We've got thousands of employees whose job it is to literally hand out laptops and cell phones, and that's it. And this is a job that can be done in 4 seconds. What are you doing with the rest of your day? Take a look at this.
Overstaffing, a good example of overstaffing would be the IRS has got 1,400 people who are dedicated to provisioning laptops and cell phones. So if you join the IRS, you get a laptop and a cell phone, you're provisioned. So if each of those IRS officers or employees provisioned 2 employees per day, you could provision the entire IRS in a little more than a month. So 12 times a year,
it doesn't make any sense. Why would you have 1,400 people whose only job it is to give out a laptop and a phone?
Right. The whole IRS could be handled once a month. So that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. 1,400 people whose job it is to hand out laptops and phones. If every single one of them handed out 2 a day, they'd be done in a month with the whole IRS. So what are you doing with the rest of your time? How many laptops and phones can you possibly be handing out on any given day? So this is so the IRS, which takes your money, this is particularly poisonous. It's the agency that takes money from you, is turning around and then instantly wasting it, the money that it stole from you, on the guys who hand out the laptops, the 2 a day. These are very weak people handing out these laptops. It's very, very heavy laptop. It takes all day. It takes half a day to hand out a laptop. Unreal. And I know we all know that the government wastes money, but when you hear it put in these terms, in these specific numbers, with these specific, if you can even call them jobs, you start to your mind explodes, and you hear this. And this is insanity. No wonder they can save $4 billion a day in cutting some of this waste. Also, for the lefties out there who are listening, there's this idea that like all these poor government workers are being fired. Now, I've talked about how government workers are expensive. Yesterday, we had EJ and Tony on the program. If you did not hear EJ, go back and watch EJ on Vince yesterday. And EJ says that it's 80 to 1. That's the relationship between private sector employees paying for each federal government worker. 80 private sector employees, you get taxes from each of those 80 people on average to fund one federal government worker, their salary and benefits. There he is. There's his mug right there on screen. That's EJ and Tony. And so that's the burden you have to bear. So, but look, people have jobs in the government. There's good people who work in the federal government. And if in this effort to try and get control of all of this spending, people have to lose their jobs, the Doge guys are making sure that they're giving them the softest possible landing they can. They're making sure that there's a cushion there because they're empathetic here. These guys are business owners. President Trump is a business owner. They know what it means for somebody not to have a job and what comes next. So there's this idea going around in the media that everyone's just being summarily fired, that these are just summary executions, and that government workers are being thrown out the door. That's not even true. That's not even true. Listen to the effort that the Doge team and the Trump administration is putting in to take care of federal employees. So they say, hey, we need to cut back. We're trimming, and we're going to help you here. Take a listen to this. Cut 5. Here we go.
You've heard a lot of news about rifts, about people getting fired. At this moment in time,
reduction in force.
Less than 0.15, not 1.5, less than 0.15 of the federal workforce has actually been given a RIF notice.
Less than 0.15% of the federal workforce has been giving termination papers, basically. The rest have been accommodated. In the interview, they explained, in terms of just like giving people severance, giving people, months of pay in order to help them make them whole as they try and find a job. So the federal workers here, they're going out of their way to figure out, okay, what can we do to help you get to your next step as we ask you to leave, and they're shrinking these agencies. They're shrinking them. Remember, President Trump wants to shrink the federal workforce by about 10% at least. The federal workforce is in the vicinity of 3 million people. That means we have to get about 300,000 people out of the federal government. And they're steadily working on that. So once again, this is all defeating all of the legacy media talking points on this subject, which are that, oh, this is heartless. Oh, you're hurting people. This is what you're really doing is devastating families. You're going after Social Security. You're going after Medicare. You're going after Medicaid. No, they're going after fraud. They're going after waste, and they're giving a soft landing to anybody that they ask to leave the federal government. All of that is the way it's happening. All of that. Okay. Now did you know that the federal government uses a single bank account to conduct all of its business? Isn't that one of the weirdest things you've ever heard? One gigantic federal government bank account from which all of this money is flowing. Listen to the Doge guys explain this arrangement, and then we're going to get into, in a moment, we'll get into how many credit cards the federal government has handed out around the country. Listen to the bank account thing first.
There is actually really only one bank account that's used to disperse all monies that go out of the federal government.
Talking about one bank account.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. A couple weeks ago, it had $800 billion in it, but it's the Treasury General account.
You hear that? One gigantic bank account. The guys keep saying, look, here's the problem. We're going to fail an audit. The federal government would fail an audit because they have no idea how the money's spent. Nobody's indicating how the money's even going out the door, what it's being spent on. There's no human being we can check with to account for the spending. These are all the features that you would need to actually successfully pass an audit. If somebody were to take a forensic look at your accounting, if you ran a business, and they would want you to be able to explain all of your expenditures. What is this? Where did this money go? Did you pay taxes on these earnings? These types of things. The federal government can't do any of that. The federal government doesn't care. They just fire money out of a cash cannon every single day to mostly these left-wing crony causes, and nobody knows who pulled the trigger. Nobody knows who's pulling the trigger on the cash cannon ever, and that's obviously by design. Elon says that this is the biggest revolution since, the American Revolution. Listen.
Well, this is a revolution, and I think it might be the biggest revolution in government since the original revolution. But at the end of the day, America is going to be in much better shape. America will be solvent. The critical programs that people depend upon will work, and it's going to be a fantastic future. But are we going to get a lot of complaints along the way? Absolutely. One of the things I learned at PayPal was who complains the loudest and with the most amount of fake righteous indignation? The fraudsters. That's the fraudsters.
That's the tell. So remember what happened in the early days of Doge. President Trump gets in office. They go to the USAID, right? And they say, what is this? This is a huge left-wing slush fund. It's just being used to fund the most demented left-wing Marxist propaganda all over the planet. Why are we spending money on this? Why? Transgender comic books in Peru? What is this? And so they dismantle USAID. No more. They cut off all the funding. And who were the ones who screeched the loudest about that? It wasn't you. It wasn't me. I wasn't upset about it. I was happy about it. I was content with it. I slept more soundly at night as a result of all of it. No, it was Democrat congressmen. It was Democrat activists. It was left-wing dark money organizations piling up outside of the front of the USAID building, which most people have never even thought about. And they're going apoplectic outside, banging on their little drums and screaming into loudspeakers that they're upset that USAID is being taken down. As Elon points out, those are the fraudsters. The ones who are screeching the loudest, the fraudsters who are taking advantage of you. More in a moment on these credit cards. What's going on with all the credit government? Do you know how many credit cards are out there? Just let me give you a hint. There are more government credit cards that have been put out than there are government workers. I'm sorry. What was that? Yeah. We'll get to that in just a moment. Also, I've got to tell you about these illegals. They're self-deporting. Even the New York Times is now acknowledging, hey, guys, something interesting is happening. Illegal aliens are literally leaving on their own. President Trump said that would happen, and sure enough, here it is. Reagan Reese also right around the corner. So we've got a lot to get to here on Vince. Look, I don't know your exact situation, but if you are like the thousands of homeowners American Financing talks to every month, you could be struggling to keep up, barely making ends meet, drowning in high interest debt. And it's not your fault. Life just gets more expensive. It did get more expensive. Inflation hit really hard. And if you're still carrying credit card balances with 20% plus interest rates while your mortgage sits untouched, you're ignoring the one thing that could turn it all around, your home. And this is where American Financing can help. Would you trade 10 minutes for a shot at saving an average of $800 every single month? Because that's exactly what homeowners are doing when they call American Finance. It's a simple and no obligation call. It could change everything. They have a team of salary-based mortgage consultants, so there isn't any incentive to put you into a loan that doesn't even make sense. There are no upfront fees to find out how much you can save. Don't wait. Call American Financing today and start feeling that relief. 888-879-6460. That's 888-879-6460. AmericanFinancing.net/Vince. All right. Hey, are you guys happy with finding out what's actually going on inside Doge? Isn't this a good use? This is a productive interview. I've got to say, as somebody who has done thousands of interviews, literally thousands of interviews, watching Brett navigate how to interview 6 or 7 people at the same time and produce a tight, useful half hour of content, pretty good. But I really like that these Doge guys came out and did this. I actually wish that they had done it earlier. Yeah, people are saying more. They want this. Doge is awesome. Very productive interview. Yeah, I totally agree with you. This is worthwhile because at its core, this is about holding the government accountable, isn't it? The whole point is if you're going to speak truth to power, you should bring in people who are actually scrutinizing the way the government is using what it took from you. And that's what Doge is. So good interview with Brett. Did a fantastic interview here because I just think that it's edifying to actually get real answers out of your government. How many times did we sit around going, hey, can we get anything here? How about some answers about literally anything? And these guys were very successful in their own right, spending a lot of time digging into our government and getting us answers every day. And then they're posting it to that Doge.gov website, which is really a fantastic place to go. If you're, once again, if you got your lefty neighbors or family members who are like, what are they doing? Send them to Doge.gov and then say, okay, try to defend the spending that these guys are actually saving us on now. Amazing. Okay, so the out of control spending. One of the ways it's happening is everyone has a government credit card. In fact, I don't even know how you could have this many credit cards active from the United States government right now. Take a listen to this. Cut 8. These are all of the credit cards that Doge had discovered.
Yeah, exactly. And we're headed in a bad path, but then the chance of success exists. And just the one that just is in my head right now, which is a fairly mundane one, but I think is very illustrative, is credit cards. There are in the federal government around 4.6 million credit cards for around 2.3 to 2.4 million employees. This doesn't make sense.
4.6 million credit cards that have been handed out to 2.3 million employees. What? So everybody's got a credit card? Is that the way it works at your business? Don't you? I mean, so in a normal functioning business, like you really try to protect what you're spending money on. And usually the junior level employees, I guess it depends on the business, but not everybody has a company card. Usually that's reserved for like the guys who are, you go up in the ranks, you're more senior, you've got a company card you can use, but you still should be making responsible decisions with the card. If you're going out for, 4 martini lunches every day with the company card, hopefully somebody's going to audit your spending and catch up with you. If that's not generating business for you, probably a bad idea. Guy doesn't have a company card? Guy, the executive producer of this program, doesn't have I don't have a company card. Nobody has a company card. I don't even think Dan Bongino had a company card. That's how locked down we are here. But this is the world that normal people live in. The federal government handed out 4.6 million. That comes out to 2 per person to 2.3 million government employees. in an environment where we have 3 million federal government employees. Yeah, that math ain't mathing, as they say. It's not adding up, unless it's just about how can we waste the most possible money as quickly as possible, which you do with those credit cards. So that's another wild detail from this excellent interview. Really, really good. Here's another one. In terms of the fraud, at the Small Business Administration, they do small business loans. People can apply for loans with the Small Business Administration. Fraudsters have been using stolen Social Security numbers to do that, including from 9-month-old little babies. Take a look at this.
For example, there were over $300 million of Small Business Administration loans that has been given out to people under the age of 11.
Well, actually, to add to it, it's 300 million under the age of 11 and over 300 million to over the age of 120.
So the youngest recipient of a Small Business Administration loan is a 9-month-old, which is a very, very precocious baby we're talking about here.
A 9-month-old. So, in other words, a 9-month-old child was born 9 months prior, if you can do the math, and a Social Security number was generated. And then a number before that kid's even a year old was stolen by a fraudster and then used to apply to steal money from you. And what the fellas say in this interview, which is right, if you ever have your identity stolen in this way and your Social Security number is used to take out a loan in your name and then the loan is never paid back, what does that do to your credit rating? What does that do to you for the rest of your life? How much of a mess does that create for you? And this kid's 9 months old? 9 months old? So what does that mean for the rest of that kid's life that they're going to have to endure? So it's there's a lot that they're uncorking here, and I like that they're using these algorithms too to get to the bottom of everything. They go into these agencies, they're searching through everything they possibly can. They're got a lot of computer whizzes on the team who are using the data to inform them, and that seems to be that's one of the only ways you could possibly tackle this behemoth that is the federal government. And these guys are doing it the right way. So it's again, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most useful exercises in creating some government efficiency I've seen in my entire lifetime. They described government spending in the past as a ratchet. You know the feeling of a ratchet. You click it forward, it doesn't go back. It's click, 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 and then you try and push it back. It won't. The tooth will catch it. That's the way the federal government has spent your money through the years. They create all these government programs and they just keep ratcheting them forward and you can never click backwards. These guys are breaking the teeth and they're moving things back, which is good, using everything that's at their disposal. All right, so we've got 9 months old receiving all of that, or having their identities stolen as the money's taken. And then Brett asks the fellows who are sitting in front of him, why are all of you guys doing this? You're very successful. You've got very successful careers. You got families you have to take care of. You've come from major positions in industry. Listen to the guys talk about why they're in this game now.
Last thing, do you guys all see this as a patriotic duty? Is that really what this is about?
It's essential.
Very much
I
so.
do, 100%. I was running 5 businesses in Houston, and I left that. I left great people to do this, and my wonderful wife said, go for it. And here I am. But I feel like this is me giving back to the country.
If we don't do this, we're sunk. The ship, unless this exercise is successful, the ship of America will sink. That's why we're doing it.
Unless this exercise is successful, the ship of America will shrink. That's the Elon Musk assessment. The men who were in that room, impressive people in their own right, now using those skills to help out the government. And last thing I'll say on this for the moment is, it has been the tendency on the left that the most successful people on the left try and go into the government. They focus all of their efforts and energies into governance, whereas traditionally in the past, the most successful people on the right, they go into private industry, they go into for-profit industry to try and generate income for themselves and take care of workers and their families. But now, just because the upheaval we're going through and how out of control our federal government's become, very successful people from the private sector have decided, including the president himself, President Trump, have decided, okay, I've got to take a break from that and I have to focus on getting my country back. And so I'll take those guys any day of the week. Very happy to have them on our side. In a moment, I want to talk a little bit more about the massive cutting, trimming, downsizing that's going on with the government. We'll do that with the mighty Reagan Reese, the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. But first, I have to tell you, I've been using the Bond Charge infrared sauna blanket and the red light face mask ever since I received them and they sent them to me. And I can't recommend them enough. I first turned to that sauna blanket to help with muscle recovery, detoxification, become a game changer. It's very easy to use. You can just wrap yourself up, let that infrared heat work its magic. And I've noticed a real difference in how relaxed and rejuvenated I feel afterward. The red light face mask is equally impressive. I'm using it to help improve my skin's texture and reduce inflammation. I've seen some fantastic results. It's like having a mini spa treatment right at home. If you're thinking of trying them out, you're in luck. Head to bondcharge.com and use the code Vince at checkout to get 15% off. Both of these products have made such a positive impact on helping my wellness routine. I'm sure you're going to love them too. Use the code Vince at bondcharge.com to save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. And are you a yo-yo dieter by any chance? You diet, you lose some weight, but then you gain it all back, plus a few extra pounds. Well, this can be dangerous for you. It is dangerous. Studies show that it can increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other health problems. Breaking free of that yo-yo diet pattern, it's a main reason doctors created Lean. Lean is a supplement. It's not an injection. You don't need a prescription. The science behind Lean is impressive. Its studied natural ingredients target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Lean helps maintain healthy blood sugar. It helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting fat into energy. Listen, if you're tired of losing weight and then gaining it back, Lean was created just for you. Let me get you started with 20% off. Enter the code VINCE20 at takelean.com. That's code VINCE20 at takelean.com. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and is not a substitute or alternative for care from a healthcare provider. Okay, so we are paring the government down, bringing it down to size. Speaking of lean, we're trimming the government up right now, and that's good news. And one of the ways that's happening is inside of one of the biggest departments in the federal government, the Department of Education. And for more on that subject and a lot more, the great Reagan Reese, White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, in the house today. Hello, Reagan.
Hi, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you here in the Rumble Studios here in D.C. We'll get to the White House stuff in a moment, but I know you've been tracking Linda McMahon of WWE fame.
Oh, yeah.
at the Department of Education. And I kind of love the analogy that the wrestling lady is going to suplex an entire agency of the federal government. What's happening there?
It's awesome. So, yeah, last week, President Trump signed this long-awaited executive order to start the dismantling of the Department of Education. And so what that does is it directs Linda McMahon to look at the department and, decide what elements of it can go to other departments of the federal government.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say explicitly, this part, the student loan should go here.
Right.
The Department of Civil Rights, the Civil Rights Office, it doesn't say where that should go. But Linda kind of gave me a sneak peek, and she told me that that Civil Rights Office will probably go to the DOJ. And the DOJ, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, will be the ones investigating schools that violate the law, that violate Title IX, that are discriminating against students. And so she's on this mission right now to, dissect the whole Department of Education while also waiting for Congress to codify the executive order and fully eliminate the Department of Education.
So in other words, it sounds like that the law requires them to retain these functions somewhere. And so the agency's saying, okay, we'll just let the other agencies do it, and we'll just shutter this building as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, there are certain elements of the Department of Education that are established through law by Congress.
Yeah.
And so Congress will have to act to fully get rid of the Department of Education. But something Linda told me this week, Secretary McMahon, was that she is personally lobbying senators and congressmen on the Hill to codify this bill in Congress. And this was something, Trump wasn't able to get done that first time around. And Linda, less than a week later is already on Capitol Hill saying, we're getting this done. We have 4 years. We have the majority now. Let's do it.
So I saw your reporting on the subject earlier. She knew that she was being hired to be a wrecking ball?
Yes. So I asked Linda McMahon, did you know that when you took this job, your end goal was to put yourself out of a job?
Right.
And she was like, absolutely. I was fully on board with the president's mission. Keep in mind, she was co-chair of the transition project. So, she was very involved in what the president's mission was.
Right.
But she said they sat down, they had a very honest conversation. He was very clear with her and said, my goal is to eliminate this, to essentially put you out of work. And he knew she was passionate about it. He asked her if she could do it. She said yes. And so they've set out since, before day one to make sure that Linda is unemployed by the end of this.
It's awesome. So I think one of the lies that's being told about the Department of Education, by shuttering it, that kids are not going to have money anymore. Like, kids are going to lose their education. These schools are going to have to close. They're going to be destitute on the streets. But that's not what's happening.
No, the whole, philosophy of closing down the Department of Education is to really give power back to the states. And these states are the closest to these children, to, let these states have the ultimate authority over which schools get money and how that's going to be distributed. Again, the funding with the Department of Education is just going to be allocated to other departments of the federal government. It's not essentially going away. Of course, DOGE is in the Department of Education, and they have made great cuts to the Department of Education. But largely, schools are not going to feel, I think, a large impact by this being shut down.
Why don't they just cut taxes? So instead of playing this game, I get it. Like, what we should do is the money should go instead of the Department of Education, where they skim money off the top and they use it for whatever they want to use it for. And then they're like, and then we'll distribute it to the states. Why don't we just start with not taking the money? How about just you cut taxes such that the states can just keep the money that they already have, that people can keep, and then the states can handle their taxation there for education. Why are we even including the federal government?
I know, or I don't even know. I feel like I'm partial from this. I'm a couple years out of college. I'm, this whole student loan thing. I don't know why the government is, still responsible for trying to relieve some of these loans from these students.
Yes.
I think the government could spend a ton of money there.
Didn't you go to Hillsdale?
I did go to Hillsdale.
Hillsdale doesn't take any government money, right?
So we don't take government money. I was very fortunate to be on a partial scholarship for softball.
Yeah.
But I did take out a loan from Hillsdale itself. And so I'm in debt to Hillsdale College.
Right.
So the government can never bail me out of that.
Yes.
And I wrote this actually while I was in college for the Wall Street Journal. I said, I would love to pay my student debt to Hillsdale. I think it is my responsibility.
Sure.
My parents and I sat down when I was going to decide to go to Hillsdale, and they said, you're going to be, we're going to help you here, but you're also going to have this amount of debt left.
Right.
Is this something that you feel that you can pay, that you can commit to? Because mom and dad aren't going to bail you out. And I was like, yes. And that was, a commitment I made when I was 17, 18 years old.
I love that. But the cool thing about Hillsdale not taking any federal cash is the federal government can't control anything that happens at Hillsdale. They're not subjected to all of these ridiculous strings that are attached to colleges that take federal money. So that's pretty cool. But that is look, the core point about this the government loans and things, the whole reason college is so expensive is because of the money, the way that the money's been handed out by the federal government. The cost of college every year has skyrocketed way past the inflation rate because the government's been involved.
Yes. Yeah. Hillsdale is, I can speak from my personal experience. Hillsdale's inexpensive, crazily, by what college is considered today. I believe base tuition is about $30,000. And the fact that is inexpensive for a higher education institution. Other ones that I was looking at when I was looking to go to college, it was like $80,000 a year. And so I think Hillsdale is just a perfect testament to that. And how not taking money from the federal government makes things affordable.
Yeah, keep the federal government out of your life as much as possible. It helps. What is happening at the White House these days? You're the White House correspondent. You're there all the time. You are literally constantly talking to the president. What's happening?
Yes. This week, of course, you guys are all aware of Signalgate. And so that's been the whole thing that I think has really taken over the White House this week, but I do think that once we hit the weekend, are going to start to shift and turn over. The president signed some pretty important executive orders this week. He signed an executive order on election integrity. The RNC kind of reinforced that election integrity executive order with a public records request of their own. He pardoned Devin Archer, which I think was a very big deal to a lot of people kind of paying attention to this, who are really into this Hunter Biden stuff. And then, of course, what I think is going to take over the news cycle is pulling this Elise Stefanik nomination to keep the House majority.
So I wanted to ask about that. So do you think the White House is going to do anything with the special elections next week? We have a big Wisconsin special election. Look, if you're in Wisconsin, I've been saying it all week. I'll say it again here. Go vote now. Literally, the early vote's happening as we speak. Election day officially is on Tuesday. And that's the control of the state Supreme Court, which will decide the congressional boundaries in the state of Wisconsin. It'll decide voting rules for future elections in the state of Wisconsin. The stakes are as high as they can possibly be in that race. So get involved right now in Wisconsin. And the other is in Florida, where we have these 2 congressional seats to replace both Matt Gaetz and Mike Waltz. And right now that Florida District 6, where Mike Waltz vacated, is very tight right now. Do you anticipate President Trump or Vice President Vance becoming more involved?
So this is something I've been poking around about and something that I think has been well received from the people I've spoken to at the White House. I haven't heard anything specific or concrete about either of them going to each location to try to make a pitch. I do know those Florida seats, while they are close, are projected to remain in GOP control. But that Wisconsin Supreme Court race, I've been working on this story where I'm kind of talking to consultants and strategists across the GOP, just learning about what they're up to right now. And every single one, I have spoken to a dozen at this point, is heavily involved in this Wisconsin Supreme Court race and very worried about it. And so I hope we are to see the vice president or the president do anything, I think Wisconsin, there could be a chance in Wisconsin.
Well, Elon's doing something. Elon expressed overnight that he intends to go to Wisconsin this weekend and do an event for people who've already voted in the Wisconsin election to kind of get them out there. Basically, I think the price of entry is that you've already voted in the Wisconsin
check that
early election.
Your vote sticker?
I guess so. Yeah, you bring your Je Voto sticker in.
So
I voted. But he's going to give away $2 million checks at this thing. He said, "Isn't that wild?" So he's like, so this guy, he really does put his money where his mouth is. I already saw lefties like, he's bribing people. He's bribing. We got to charge him. Now's our chance. Arrest Elon. But Elon jumping into this thing, and also in Florida, I think he's been running text message campaigns through his America PAC to get people to show up to vote for these Republicans. So thankfully, Elon's still in the fight here. I would like to see more spending though, because in that District 6, you've got the Democrat has a 10-to-1 spending advantage right now. $10 million for the Democrat, $1 million for the Republican. We've just got a couple days to go before this election. This is a massive deal. President Trump needs the margins, doesn't he?
Yes, definitely. And I think these races are good indications to the GOP on just like it's kind of like an early feedback loop on what they're thinking of President Trump and what's going on in the White House. In terms of the spending, Vince, this is something I have been talking to, sources in the GOP who are heavily involved in these races, and something that's on their radar, that they are not spending enough in these races and that they are being outspent by Democrats. And that is an easy way for the GOP to fall flat-footed and to kind of have the rug pulled out from underneath them. And of course, that's not what they want and not what they're hoping to do, especially now as Democrats are in disarray. They have no leader, and they seem to be embracing the 2 furthest left leaders that they could in this moment where the whole country essentially just shifted right after the November election, and Democrats cannot agree on why they lost and are essentially rejecting the results and embracing AOC and Sanders. And so I think that these consultants and strategists are taking all of this into account, they're very aware that, they're not spending enough and that they have a real time to capitalize on how weak the Democratic Party is right now.
They sure look like it, but man, the trap